Hey everyone, it's Alex from the Whiskey Geeks and the whiskeygeeks.com, and I've got a special neck pour session that also involves saying goodbye to something very dear to me. So as you can see in front of me, I have got the Octomore from Bruichladdich, and I've been hanging on to the 6.1 for quite a while, and we've got a bottle kill here.
Fatality.
Waiting to pour out the very last dram of this one. Not much left in here. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting until I could replace the bottle. So I'm happy to say that I have a newly acquired 11.1 version that my father had shipped from Craft Cellars, which is a great store out in Calgary. So this just arrived here a couple days ago, and we're gonna crack this bad boy and do a little comparison. So we're gonna let this one breathe for a little bit after we crack the bottle here, just because this is a super heavily peated Scotch. This one, the 11.1, is coming in at 139.6 ppm, which is really quite high. Most Islay whiskeys are in around the 30 to 40 on the ppm scale. The 6.1 that I had was 167, and if I actually, hold on a second here, my dad actually also brought up his 11.3. And having a look at this one comes in at 194 ppm. So just for sake of showing off, the 11.3 is made with the locally sourced barley that is on the Bruichladdich distillery just up the road. So this is actually a very special reserve bottle. Limited to, what's it say here, 18,000 bottles in production. So this one comes in the nice clear glass bottle. This one obviously in the complete black, so you can't even see what's inside, which is why I wasn't quite sure how much of the 6.1 I actually had left. And I was shaking the bottle, I couldn't really hear anything. So I'm happy to say that I did get a full, well, maybe a tasting portion out of that one. So we're gonna go ahead and pour this 11.1. See what this is like by comparison. Now, I am gonna let this one breathe, so I'm just gonna have a sniff here. Actually, it's really not, it's not as overpowering on the nose, peat-wise, as the 6.1. Yeah, the 6.1 is actually quite it's quite smokier on the nose, and I've just from off camera been past a bit of the 11.3, and actually very similar to the 11.1. It's not blowing me away on the nose actually for being all the way up at 194. I'm actually quite surprised at how light and fragrant this is. So like I said, just because these are fresh neck pours, I'm just going to pause a minute. We'll probably put a little clock in here on the countdown, and I'll be back in just a little minute, and we'll do the tasting. Okay, cheers. And welcome back. So we've let these sit for about 10 minutes, and I'll admit my nose was stuffed in here pretty much the entire time. And it's, like I said on that first one, it's not as overpowering as I was expecting. The 6.1 is much smokier on the nose. This one, there's some nice sweetness actually coming through. It's really rather complex. There is some vanilla that comes through. I mean, of course, you're getting the like the ashy smoke fire that that Octomore is known for, with like a bit of iodine as well. And there is there's a bit of a smoked honeyed bacon in there as well. Just, I mean, you've really got to get your nose in there and take a big haul, which is a little tough when it's coming in at 59%. It certainly tickles the nose as you're taking a deep sniff. But so you can definitely feel the full cask strength, like immediately on the tongue. You do get those spicy oak notes that just sit right down. It's quite smooth actually though for coming in at 59%. It's I mean, it would definitely open up with adding a bit of water to it, which I generally don't do. That being said, because I now have a brand new bottle of this, I might experiment a little bit with that. Coming back to the nose, actually, now that I've had a sip, I'm actually getting a bit more of the like the C notes, the iodine, and then a bit more of that like sort of that ashy oak notes as well that are coming through just a little bit more now that I've got it on the palate. But I must say I'm very excited that I've got a brand new bottle of this to replace the other one. I mean, the other one was a 6.1, we're all the way up to 11, so you know how long I've had that other bottle sitting on the shelf and how remiss I was to finish off this last dram. So I'm just quickly gonna give a rinse here before I have a little bit of the 11.3. Now, like I said, this one is coming in slightly higher, so the ABV on this is 61.7, and this one is coming at 194 ppm, so about 60 points higher on per ppm for the how peaty it is. And now this one's almost a little bit more floral on the nose. But then you still do get those strong notes of the iodine as well. Now I actually think this one is a little bit smoother than the 11.1. Even though it's got a higher ABV, I don't feel the same spiciness that hits the tongue right away on that first taste. So what I'm doing is I'm really trying to see if I can tell the difference in the grain. While the 11.1, it is 100% Scottish barley that they're using. The 11.3 is actually 100% local to Bruichladdich, local to their distillery. Comes from a very specific farmer that's just down the road. I'm going to go off screen for a quick sec to the Whiskey Dad. James Brown's farm. Thank you very much. So it's actually 100% sourced from there, and what they're doing is they're trying to do some experimentation with the terroir, which is something that's done a bit more when it comes to wines with specific vineyards and grapes and the notes that they're pulling out of the soil that's being used. And Bruichladdich they're starting to push the envelope a little bit there and experimenting with that, and really locally sourced barley and seeing if that, what type of different influences they can bring into the bottle. If you haven't read the article that we're putting up onto the site, is how do distilleries create flavor, head on over to the website, www.thewhiskeygeeks.com. We're putting an article up in 3 parts, and we go from everywhere from the grain all the way through to time spent in the barrel. And we do look at grain, the different grains, but then also things like locally sourced and different grains from different regions and how that can influence the character that comes into your glass. Well, I gotta say, this is very, very nice. I would say this one's a little bit maltier than the 11.1. Generally the characteristics are, they're very similar. They're going after the same flavor profiles in general. So you are getting that the smoky ash after a campfire with notes of like there are notes of vanilla and almost like burnt brown sugars. Going back to the nose on the 11.3, once again, it's I'm pulling out more of the iodine in the nose as I go back. So I mean, I'm going to pretty much spend the rest of my evening with my nose crammed into one of these Glencairn glasses and just sniffing. Really excited to have one of my favorite whiskeys back in my collection, and I will be saying goodbye to the 6.1 tonight. It's been a heck of a ride with this one, and I'm excited to explore the 11.1 as we get past this neck pour. So hopefully you all enjoyed this, and remember, Scotch and stories, they belong together. Cheers.